Hello and welcome once again, all friends and devotees of yoga, meditation, and Buddhist studies. Today is Friday, the 4th of September 2015. Continuing our lectures and discussion forum, I'm just going to quickly brush through page 24 of Master Ching Kong's work to understand Buddhism. These investigations were carried out by Grandmaster Ching Kong. Grandmaster Ching Kong, for all those who are new, who are watching these videos for the first time, Grandmaster Ching Kong is one of the leading Buddhist authorities of our time. He's still alive. He's about almost 90 years old. He was born 1927. He should be about in his late 80s now, 88, 89, thereabout. Grandmaster Ching Kong has really done a lot of great works in Buddhism. Just like the Dalai Lama, just like Grandmaster Xingyun, and just like Grandmaster Cheng Yang. They are all very... Cheng Yang is a lady, but we call them master in Buddhism. These are all great Buddhas. They are very great scholars. They have done a lot of extensive work in Buddhism. Grandmaster Ching Kong is particularly very distinguished for his work. Really, he's done a lot of painstaking research to really take us 2,600 years into the time of Buddha himself, to really try to see who the Buddha was and what the Buddha did in his time. If you've been following our lecture series from Buddhism as an education to the current readings we are now doing to understand Buddhism, you would have, if you've been reading through, if you've been doing your homework correctly, you should have found really what Grandmaster Ching Kong has done. He's done a very great work. If you've been doing your reading, you would have seen that he has really taken us far back in history to try to show us the more clearer picture of the Buddha, the ancient school of Buddhism, and what the Buddha was. A lot of people nowadays are confused. They are thinking that they're trying to place Buddha where they place Jesus Christ or Allah, Christianity, Islam, and then they try to categorize Buddhism as a world religion. You have Christianity as a first world religion, you have Islam as second, this with respect to the population. You have Hinduism as third and Buddhism as fourth, largest world religions. Wrong. It's nonsense. Buddhism is not a world religion. Buddhism is a universal institution of advanced learning. That's the correct definition. Buddhism is an institution of advanced learning. The Buddha was a teacher. The relationship between us and the Buddha is a student-teacher relationship. We don't worship the Buddha. The Buddha concentrated his whole life, he dedicated his life to investigating suffering in detail, to try to help humankind, human beings, to understand what is suffering, why do we suffer, what is the cause of suffering, and how may we eradicate suffering from our lives. He concentrated his life on dealing with suffering, dealing with the problem of suffering, and trying to instruct human beings, instruct humanity, humankind, how to eradicate, extirpate, remove suffering from our lives. This is the greatest contribution of the Buddha. Actually, I call it the greatest contribution to humanity. The Buddha made the greatest contribution to humankind because he instructed, he showed human beings precisely how to remove suffering from their lives. Just imagine if you lived in this world without having to suffer, without having to feel pains, without having to be depressed or to feel sad, or without suffering. Try to picture your life as it is now, with suffering, and then try to imagine if you live through this life without suffering. It is possible to live without suffering. I speaking to you, I instructing you, I the teacher now teaching you, I'm living my life with minimum suffering. My suffering reduced greatly because I have been studying Buddhism for well over 10 years. I've been studying Buddhism since year 2002, very intensively. I started in Texas. 2002, I really started studying Buddhism in several large temples and schools, institutes in Texas, where there are a lot of Asian population. So, since then, of course, I can testify to you that since then, lots of things I did out of sheer indiscipline, out of sheer ignorance, reduced. There are so many things we don't have to do. You don't have to be too attached to situations in life. You don't have to desire too many things. It's like in those days when I was in the school, and we brought a long list of what we needed to buy to take to school when I was in the secondary school, what we call secondary school in Nigeria, middle school. And I brought it to my parents. These are the list: pencils, books, pillowcase, bed sheets, and this and this. My father and my mother sat down and looked at the list of things we needed to buy to take to school. And we, the children, we brought lists of hundreds of things we needed to take to school. And my parents would sit down in the chair with us, and we all sit down on the table. And my father would take a pen, I remember very well, and begin to strike out things from the list. Son, you don't need this to take to school. Strike it out. You don't need that to take to school. Strike it out. You don't need that. You don't need. My father will strike out things. And at the end of the day, he will bring you just the basic things you need to take to school. That's exactly what Buddhism teaches us. Discipline. So it teaches you all the secrets. And then you begin to strike out things you don't need in life. There are too many desires. Human beings have too many desires. Believe me, if you gave people the whole world and all the gold and all the silver in it, they will still not be satisfied. That's what Buddha said, a shower of gold will not satisfy the human beings. Give everybody in this world $1 billion, they are not going to be satisfied. So that's what the Buddha observed, because it's inside. It's an indiscipline which comes from craving. Human beings are never satisfied. They will not discipline themselves. Discipline yourselves. You don't need everything in the world to be satisfied. So that's what Buddhism teaches us. It teaches you how to strike out what you don't need. Discipline. Train yourself to what you do need to go through life. The necessities, what you do need. Not every desire. We don't entertain every desire. You don't need all that. So these are the secrets of what Buddhism teaches the people. So the Buddha had to teach people how to discipline themselves, walk through life with what you just need to go through, not what you don't need to go through. And then your suffering will reduce. When you have less desires, less craving, less attachment, why will your suffering not reduce? So I'm going to continue to read. If you're already on, for those who are new, these websites are attached to this video. So you may proceed to the websites, click on it to understand Buddhism, and go straight to page 24. And I'll read from there. The Southern Dharma Protector symbolizes improvement and daily advancement. Not only do matters need to be taken care of appropriately, continuous improvement also needs to be sought. In his right hand, the Southern Dharma Protector holds the sword of wisdom, and in his left hand, a ring symbolizing the perfection of wisdom, showing us that one needs to use wisdom in seeking improvement. The sword symbolizes how one needs to sever afflictions before they are out of control. The third and fourth heavenly guardians are the Western and the Northern Dharma Protectors, representing comprehensive vision and listening respectively. Both teach us to observe and listen more carefully, as well as to read numerous books and travel to many places for comprehensive learning. They teach us to do well in our job, to adopt the good qualities, as well as to disregard the shortcomings of others. The Western Dharma Protector represents far-sighted observation and holds a dragon or snake. The dragon or snake symbolizes constant change. In his other hand, he holds a bead symbolizing principles. People, matters, and objects in society undergo changes constantly. One needs to observe very carefully and thoroughly to have a firm grasp on the principles within in order to be able to control this dragon or snake. The Northern Dharma protector holds an umbrella to prevent one from being contaminated. This reminds us that within a complex society, one needs to know how to protect one's body and mind from pollution and corruption. From these examples, we can see that the artistic aspects of the Buddha's education are truly beautiful. Unfortunately, many people regard these Dharma protectors as gods to be worshipped, which is totally wrong. Chapter 4. The 5 guidelines of practice. We begin from the 3 conditions. After establishing Pure Land learning centers in several countries, we set 5 guidelines for Pure Land practitioners to follow. These 5 guidelines were extracted from the 5 Pure Land Sutras to be applied in daily living. The first guideline is the 3 conditions extracted from the Visualization Sutra, which provides a very important foundation for cultivation. The Buddha stated in the sutra that these 3 conditions are the proper causes of which all the Buddhas from the past, present, and future practice their pure karma. In other words, all the people who became Buddhas perfected these as their foundation. Thus, we cannot disregard them. The first condition concerns the good fortune of heavenly beings and humans. Before one can become a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, one needs to first become a good person. The criteria for this are: A, being filial and respectful towards parents, teachers, and elders. B, being compassionate and not killing any living being. And C, practicing the 10 good conducts. With this first step, we begin to practice Buddhism. The second condition includes A, taking the 3 refuges, B, abiding by laws, customs, and precepts, and C, conducting oneself in proper and dignified manner. The main principle of our practice is awakening, proper thoughts and viewpoints, and purity. A beginning step in learning Buddhism is to take refuge in the triple jewels. After one generates the heart to take refuge in the triple jewels by accepting, learning, and practicing Buddhism, one finds a Dharma master to pass on the principle, goal, and direction of practicing Buddhism. The triple jewels are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In appearance, they are pictures or sculptures of Buddhas, Buddhist sutras, and monks and nuns, respectively. Another way of understanding them is that they are the true triple jewels within our true mind. The Buddha taught us to take refuge in the triple jewels of our self-nature. To return and rely upon the Buddha is to rely on the awakening in our self-nature. What is this awakening? Currently, we are deluded and not awakened. How did we become deluded? Delusion is due to our discriminating mind and attachments. If we part from this discriminating mind and attachments, can we still see objects clearly? We cannot say we do not see them, but if we see them very clearly without discriminating thoughts and attachments, then we are awakened. When there is the slightest discrimination or attachment, one is deluded. The same applies to our attaching to the form we are looking at. It is delusion. Initially, objects do not have names, but are given them by people. The names, like the object, are not real. Apart from the names and appearances, what we see is the true form. We are deluded about these forms, their physical features, and their names. Consequently, when we rid ourselves of these delusions, we will not be attached. This is how we can train ourselves to return and rely upon the Buddha jewel or enlightenment. If someone points to a table and asks what it is, we will naturally say it is a table, because that is what everybody calls it. We go along with everybody's attachment. But if we are not attached to it ourselves, then we will be awakened. Therefore, the minds of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are pure and without the slightest pollution, for they are completely without these attachments. When with others, we can go along with them, but maintain our purity inside. In this way, we return and rely upon awakening. After taking refuge, when we apply this concept to our daily living, whether interacting with people, matters, or objects, we will no longer be deluded. Our mind will always be pure, non-discriminating, and able to help all sentient beings. This is to return and rely upon awakening, or the Buddha jewel. I'll stop at this point. Folks, I'll leave you to contemplate. Our job is to contemplate, to reflect, and to meditate upon the teachings that are coming directly from the Buddha. Again, our relationship is teacher-student relationship. The Buddha is our supreme teacher, and we are the students. So whatever is handed down to us from the Buddha, we look at it critically, we look at it, we observe carefully, and then we study thoroughly, we meditate upon these things, we reflect on them, and we contemplate on them. Folks, if you have any questions, any comments, feel free to contact me. My email address is c.aburime@hotmail.com. Aburime, A-B-U-R-I-M-E, c.aburime@hotmail.com, or Color College, color spelled British, COLOUR-COLLEGE, colorcollege@hotmail.com. Thanks, folks. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Namo Amitofo.